Are you about to study for the Cisco ENCOR exam and need a little primer on the subject of SD access? Well, this video's for you. Hey, what's going on YouTube? Anthony Sequeira here, and I am thrilled that you are joining me for this little introduction to the SD access feature. Don't make the mistake of fearing the unknown. For many of you coming from a route, switch, and T-shoot environment, you may look at the blueprint for the ENCOR exam and go, whoa, all this SD stuff. SD standing for software defined. And as we're going to see, this just really isn't that bad, what you need to know just from an SD access standpoint. And let me explain to you where we're going to deep dive. Ronnie Wong and I at IT Pro TV have been really enjoying doing the deep dives into some of these specific technologies, but it's important to understand what the SD access solution looks like from a bird's eye view. Let's take a look at the architecture right here. You can see it starts with physical stuff. That's right, just because there's software-defined networking doesn't mean that you'll be out of a job. There's still going to be physical equipment that you need to, take care of, even if you don't plan on getting into the high-end architectural, software-defined stuff. But it's not that difficult, so I encourage you to master it all. Anyways, we've got our routers, our switches, our wireless equipment, and then there's two hardware components. Granted, the ICE, every time I've ever implemented it, it was as a virtual machine. But since the Cisco DNA Center and the Identity Service Engine can be disseminated as physical appliances, we've got them there in the physical layer, and those are two components that are going to make the SD access solution a reality. Now, as we move up to the network layer, notice we get into a concept that is common in software-defined solutions, and that is there is an underlay, which is super fun to say, underlay. The underlay is where we are going to have our traditional routing mechanisms or layer 2 mechanisms if we're using like rapid spanning tree protocol in a layer 2 environment. The underlay is all of that stuff, including the connections between the devices that we've set up, and then the overlay at the network layer goes on top of that and makes all the software-defined magic happen. So the overlay is going to consist of LISP as the control protocol. It's going to feature VXLAN as the data plane protocol, and then it's going to feature Cisco's TrustSec as what's called a policy plane of operation there at the network layer. So that overlay is the magic that allows the SD access solution to be heavily automated and to be able to easily adapt as we are moving components from one place in the physical access layer. It looks like just a physical access layer to them, right? As we're moving people in the access layer around and as devices are roaming and all that stuff is taking place, it can just seamlessly adapt thanks to those overlay components. So at the controller layer, we've got our Identity Service Engine. This is going to be our AAA entity. This is going to be the device that's really making sure we can implement Cisco TrustSec for policy, and then the Cisco DNA Center. Notice one level up at the management layer, we have the Cisco DNA Center GUI, and this allows for automation. It allows for design, policy implementation, provisioning, and network assurance capabilities, including machine learning analysis of your network, so that this DNA Center controller can really take your devices through their entire life cycle. It's not just about making sure the devices can, react flexibly when you want to do different stuff. So I thought I would wrap up this overview with a little fun exercise here. Let's take a look at a sample drag and drop like you might see in your exam environment. I tried to compose this and will do so in future videos to be as absolutely difficult as possible, right? Don't you love when practice questions are more difficult than the real thing? You go into the real exam and you're like, wow, this is super simple, thanks to those practice questions that I took. So this drag and drop, probably a bit more difficult than you would actually see in the exam environment. So we have these components on the left of the software-defined access solution, and over on the right we have the little slots we got to drag them to. What I would do if I were you from a strategy standpoint here is look for any obvious ones to you on the left or the right. So for example, the management layer, as I'm looking, I see, well, that could be the identity service engine, or it could be the data center graphical user interface. What's the best answer there? I'm going to go ahead with the DNA Center GUI at the management layer. That's going to take the identity service engine, by the way, and as I'm looking at what else there is over on the right, that's going to take it and put it all the way down at that physical layer. That's where it would go in this presentation. And then as you're looking at these, you see ISIS. Or as Bill Clinton once said, it depends on what your definition of is. It was the worst Bill Clinton impression ever. So ISIS is a routing protocol that is making a huge comeback. I've had a blast teaching it in the NSLED certification exam. That's one of the electives that you could take in addition to ENCOR. It's the 420 exam. Hey, 420, yo man. All right, anyways, so ISIS is actually the underlay technology here. Can you believe it? So we slide intermediate system to intermediate system into our underlay as part of that technology. And then this is where it gets super tricky. We could identify LISP and VXLAN and Cisco TrustSec as being our overlay technologies, but what specific overlay technologies? Well, you might remember from our discussion a moment ago, we would put the Cisco TrustSec at the policy layer there. We would put the LISP at the control layer and VXLAN at the data layer. One of the reasons that VXLAN isn't the control plane intelligence there, or better way to state it, why LISP isn't used as the data plane, is that VXLAN can handle both layer 2 designs and layer 3 designs without an issue, where LISP would be limited more to the layer 3 type of encapsulation. So this is a drag and drop, that is really quite typical for the drag and drops that you'll see in your ENCOR exam, only as I said, this one might be a bit more difficult. Well, let's click on the submit button and see how we did, and sweet. And I'll be back with more videos like this one on ENCOR and many other subjects inside of the scope of Cisco's next level certifications. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you here on YouTube and at IT Pro TV.